BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Tom Sanders. Good evening. The Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has insisted Donald Trump's interventions in British politics won't affect the warmth of his welcome when he begins his state visit tomorrow. Hopes are fading for 8 climbers, including 4 from Britain, who are missing on India's second highest mountain. Thousands of Liverpool fans are lining the city's streets as the team celebrate their Champions League triumph with a victory parade. On the eve of Donald Trump's state visit to Britain, the Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt has insisted the President's controversial intervention in the Brexit debate and the Conservative leadership contest will not affect the warmth of the welcome he receives. Mr Hunt told American television there was a list of things Britain and the United States disagreed on, but it was still the most important partnership in the world. Our diplomatic correspondent James Landale reports.
The security barriers are being put up, the stars and stripes flying high along the Mall. But even before the President arrives and the ceremonial of this state visit begins, there is controversy. In an interview with the Sunday Times, Mr Trump suggested Britain should pursue a no-deal Brexit, refuse to pay the £39 billion Brexit divorce bill, and choose Boris Johnson as its next Prime Minister. Such an undiplomatic intervention may be unsurprising from this incumbent of the White House, but it still left his ambassador to the UK, Woody Johnson, picking up the pieces on the Andrew Marr show.
He has known Boris for a long time, so I think what he's commenting on is just his knowledge of Boris as a person and all the meetings he's had with Boris. Rather than, I don't think he's said it's not an endorsement.
Over the next 3 days, President Trump will get all the pageantry of a state visit. Dinner with the Queen, lunch with the Prime Minister, D-Day commemorations at Portsmouth. But all this at a time when Britain and the US disagree over how to tackle the threat from Iran, how much to engage with Chinese technology firms, and how best to combat climate change. The Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, told the US TV network CBS that Britain had learned to expect the unexpected from Mr Trump, and his remarks would not affect the warmth of the welcome he receives.
The other thing we've learned from the President is that regularly we have to agree to disagree, and there's a whole list of things that we don't agree with the administration on, but it doesn't affect the fact that we have the most important partnership that there is in the world for freedom, democracy, the rule of law, the things that really matter, and that's what we're celebrating.
But not everyone shares that analysis, and tens of thousands of people are expected on the streets of London this week to protest against the visit. Today, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, described Mr Trump as a global threat. This state visit is supposed to demonstrate Britain and America's shared values, history and sacrifice, particularly during the Second World War. The risk is that the differences will be on show too.
Several of the candidates vying to become the next Conservative leader have been explaining how they intend to deliver Brexit. The former leader of the Commons, Andrea Leadsom, said she would seek a managed withdrawal from the EU by the autumn. The former Universities Minister, Sam Gyimah, who supports a public vote on any Brexit deal, has also joined the race to succeed Theresa May. Here's our political correspondent, Susanna Mendonça.
The Tory leadership race is so far centred on the options of leaving with no deal or delaying Brexit to do a deal. To date, the former leader of the House of Commons, Andrea Leadsom, who's a keen Brexiteer, has been putting more meat on the bone of her plan, which sounded a lot like a no-deal Brexit, although she called it something different.
I'm going for a managed exit, which I do believe is workable. I've been advocating it in government for some time now. I think it's based on the premise that, number one, we have to leave the EU at the end of October, and number two, the withdrawal agreement bill is dead. The EU won't reopen the withdrawal agreement, and UK Parliament won't vote for it.
And rivals have been setting out the detail of their pitches. The Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who said leaving without a deal was not an available choice to the next PM because Parliament would never allow it to happen, has pledged to negotiate an endpoint to the Irish backstop, a contentious part of Theresa May's withdrawal agreement designed to prevent the return of physical border checks if there isn't a future trade deal. The Home Secretary Sajid Javid, who's keeping no deal on the table for his bid, is promising what he's calling a digitised Irish border, which the UK government would pay for in full. And the latest candidate to enter the fray is throwing another referendum into the mix. Sam Gyimah, a former Universities Minister who quit over Theresa May's withdrawal agreement, said he would stand for the leadership to broaden the debate. The contest now has 13 candidates and it hasn't even officially started yet.
Officials in India say it's increasingly unlikely that 8 missing climbers, 4 of them British, will be found alive. Poor weather has forced the authorities to suspend a search for the group who are climbing Nuna Devi in the Himalayas. Angus Crawford has the latest.
The team were last seen more than a week ago, but the alarm was only raised on Friday when they failed to return to base camp. The expedition is being led by an experienced British mountain guide, Martin Moran. His family have released a statement saying they are deeply saddened by the tragic events unfolding in the Nanda Devi region. They confirmed there'd been a large avalanche in the area, very close to the route the missing team were taking. Searches on foot and by helicopter have so far found no sign of the climbers, their equipment or tents. Alan Hinks, who's a friend of Mr Moran, says it's still possible they survived.
Holding out hope, because people can go missing in the Himalaya for a week. You can get trapped and then might have to dig a snow hole and survive for several days. But the monsoon is moving in now, which, is very heavy rain in the Indian lowlands, and then it's dumping fresh amounts of snow and bad weather in the mountains.
Rescuers have also been using drones to search the affected area, but have had to call a temporary halt to the operation. Vijay Kumar Jogdande, the district magistrate, says the weather has now closed in.
It has started raining and it's getting very cloudy. So if these conditions keeps on happening, then probably our air operations will be affected and helicopter search may not take place if these weather conditions are continued for tomorrow morning.
4 other British mountaineers travelled to the Nanda Devi base camp with the missing climbers, but were found nearby and airlifted to safety. They are reported to be uninjured and in good health.
Police in Northern Ireland say they believe it was violent dissident Republicans who left a bomb under the car of an off-duty officer in Belfast yesterday. The device was spotted and did not explode. Officers throughout Northern Ireland have been told to step up their personal security. Here's our Ireland correspondent, Emma Vardy.
Police say there's no doubt the device hidden under a vehicle at a golf club in East Belfast was designed to kill, and had it exploded, the likely outcome would have been the murder of an officer. One of the vehicles believed to be connected to those who planted the device was registered in Dublin, and police have begun a cross-border investigation. Assistant Chief Constable George Clark blamed violent dissident Republicans and said it was not just the officer put in danger, but many others.
We are extraordinarily fortunate that we are not talking about the murder of a police officer, of members of his family, or indeed members of the public, passing a bomb that has been planted recklessly, cruelly and viciously under his motor car.
The investigation is focusing on 2 cars, a green Skoda Octavia and a silver Saab. Police are asking people to come forward if they have CCTV or dashcam footage of the area around Shandon Park Golf Club between Friday evening and yesterday morning.
China's defence minister has made a rare acknowledgement of the violent suppression of pro-democracy protests in Tiananmen Square in Beijing in 1989. Speaking in Singapore, General Wei Fenghua said the government crackdown had been the correct decision because it was followed by 30 years of stability and development in China. Here's our Asia-Pacific editor, Celia Hatton.
Hundreds, perhaps even several thousand protesters were killed in the heart of Beijing by Chinese troops on the 4th of June 1989. It's a bloody chapter in history that China's leaders have worked hard to erase. So it was unusual for a top Chinese general, Wei Fenghua, to acknowledge the event when he answered questions at a gathering of international defense ministers in Singapore. That was a political turmoil that the central government needed to quell, he said. The government was decisive in stopping the turbulence. That was the correct policy. It's a sign the government's view on Tiananmen Square has not evolved. Over the years, activists have periodically appealed to China's rulers to apologize for the massacre and the deaths of their own citizens. Beijing has never released a thorough account of the crackdown, including the actual number of victims, and it has gone to great lengths to censor any discussion of it within China. Even obscure references are scrubbed from the Chinese internet, leaving many young people in China without any knowledge of what happened in Beijing in June 1989.
Tens of thousands of fans have turned out to welcome home Liverpool's victorious Champions League team. Jurgen Klopp's side are currently parading the trophy through the city on an open-top bus following last night's 2-0 win over Tottenham in the final in Madrid. Our sports correspondent Andy Swiss is watching.
For Liverpool fans, it was a day when any vantage point would do. Some clung to trees, others to traffic lights and lampposts as the players paraded the Champions League trophy from an open-top bus. The city at a standstill as thousands upon thousands came to welcome home their heroes. Their victory over Tottenham Hotspur had sparked celebrations long into the night, and the supporters were only too happy to keep the party going.
I was 11 when we last won it. It was like waited 14 years for this.
It means a lot. But having said that, we've expected it for a while now, the way he's been building the team.
Even when we play a bad game, we still win 2-0. It's incredible, man. Our team is something special right now.
Liverpool are no strangers to days like this. This is the 6th time they've been European champions. Only Real Madrid and AC Milan have a better record. But the charisma of manager Jurgen Klopp and the attacking style of his team have earned widespread admiration. On a day of jubilation for the red half of the city, Liverpool fans will be hoping more victory parades aren't far away.
Now, with details of another victory for Johanna Konta at the French Open and the rest of the day's action, here's Shabnam Younis-Jewel.
The British number one, Johanna Konta, has reached the quarter-finals of the French Open in Paris after beating Croatia's Donna Vekic 6-2, 6-4. Konta's lost in the first round on her 4 previous appearances at the French Open. From Roland Garros, here's our correspondent Russell Fuller.
Brimming with confidence and playing with clarity of thought, Konta will on Tuesday contest her 4th Grand Slam quarter-final against either Garbiñe Muguruza or Sloane Stephens, both of whom are already Grand Slam champions. Konta made life difficult for Vekic from the opening point in temperatures of 30 degrees plus and held serve to love when presented with the first opportunity to close out the match. It has been a remarkable run for Konta, who once again looks the player who was good enough to reach an Australian Open and Wimbledon semi-final.
Also through to the quarter-finals in Paris are Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer. At the Cricket World Cup, South Africa are chasing 331 to beat Bangladesh at the Oval. They're currently on 287 for 7. Anthony Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn says he expects a rematch against Andy Ruiz Jr. to take